This episode of Fresh and Buds is brought to you by the Savage Land's favorite seasoning, folks. It is Beet Zest. Folks, it's so good. You just throw in your chicken, maybe like some kind of beast meat or something like that. It is absolutely insane. I love Beet Zest. I put it on everything. And folks, they're a sponsor of the show. And for that reason alone, you should be checking it out. Go to www.beetzest.com/fresh /buds /podcast and check it out, folks. But speaking of all of those things, let's get to the show, Fresh and Buds, right now.
Fresh and Buds.
All right, folks, welcome back yet again to Fresh and Buds. I am your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all of my buds. And today we are joined once again, even though it's been a long time, it is Br33zy, aka Parker. How you doing, buddy? What's going on? Welcome back to the show.
Dude, it's been a while. Thanks for bringing me back. It's good to see you, dude.
Yeah. No, it was a long time coming. You know, always like to get some buds back on. You know, it's just, you know, it's crazy scheduling a show. I've found and having a real life. It's wild. Who knew, right? Folks? But we got a great show for you. We're right off the tail end of a Pro Tour LA. I want to talk about what happened over the weekend, and it was all good things actually, which is great. And you know, we're gonna get to see what Br33zy's been up to, and then kind of get our thoughts on maybe what the future holds for Flesh and Blood. But let's get right into it. First of all, how are you? What's new? And you know, a lot's happened since we last chatted. I mean, it was 2022 when we last chatted, right after Pro Tour New Jersey. Yeah, dude. It seems like it's been longer than that since I've like face to faced you, but personally, nothing too crazy. You know, I think since then I've bought a house, so no big deal. No, but yeah. So I've moved a little bit, still in Texas, but you know, changed careers a little bit as well. But as far as Flesh and Blood goes, like I still stay true and strong to Viscerai and the Rune Blade family, and just, you know, trying to wet my toes a little bit. It's been tough with the move, having a 2-year-old, doing as much content consistently. I mean, even as you got a show to run, and you make it go on. So for me, it's like, oh, I'll get to it when I can. But hopefully that'll clear up here as my little one gets a little bit bigger. But I keep saying that, but we'll see. I mean, you know, being a FAB dad is pretty tough, but is admirable. So, you know, for the listeners who don't really know, and I want to ask you this question. When you first came on, we had mentioned this, but it's been a very long time since then. We first met in the early days of Flesh and Blood when people were just jamming webcam games, like just randomly on the purple Discord, on like the main Discord. And we played a game, we got to chatting, I mentioned the show, and then, you know, flash forward a couple months later, or maybe even, I guess it was probably like 6 months later, you know, we get you on the show and stuff like that. Are you still jamming webcam games as like a FAB dad, or are you sticking to Talishar?
Honestly, I feel like we should make it we should make it a thing again. You know, do like a webcam league. And for those who know, get to join. No, like, that's such a nostalgic blast from the past because I remember, think back then, all I saw was hands. We didn't see people's faces ever. There was no face cams. We didn't have that infrastructure. It was just like, what's up, dude? What's up, man? Just like hands on a table. So yeah, but I remember seeing your playmat, because you had the Fresh and Buds playmat, and I was like, God, that's so clean. I love that. I like listen to the show when I can. And I think we hit it off then. And so, man, it's been a while. I haven't played any webcam games, though. It's been mostly Talishar and sprinkling of armories every now and then.
Yeah, you know, the webcam games, they were a lot of fun, but, you know, I think just recently I was like trying to redo my desk, and I finally took the webcam like kind of crane thing I had here, like put it off to the side for now. I'll probably bust it back out for some content, but you know, those are some wild days. But you know, some people are still keeping it alive.
Az is doing his the League That Means
That's right.
Nothing. I should shout it out. Go check them out.
That's right.
Mo Bogsley and I did some wild commentary for some of those games. And, I know William over at the Table Pit's always trying to get some webcam games going for
true,
some
yeah.
UPF. So,
Okay.
those are some, like, it's nostalgic. I almost miss those days. Almost. I'm glad
Me
that,
too.
we get to go to armories and stuff. But Talistar is a great tool as well. But now,
Yeah.
ever since we've last chatted, you were, first of all, just one of the better Twitter follows, or at the time it was still Twitter, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
One of the better Twitter followers, or follows to kind of get like some real hype for Flesh and Blood. And since then, you've gotten a lot more into just more content, even video content. Can you tell us about what you're doing in the like Flesh and Blood content space?
Yeah. So I guess I've always wanted to do like deck reviews. I label myself as a casual competitor, and I know there's a lot of people that like hate that term. They're like, you pick a lane, but like I'm super competitive, but my bandwidth is casual, right? Like I can only do so much. So I say, it's casual. When I get to it, I can. So since then, man, I've done, a few videos on my channel whether it be like a deck review, some of my home brews, nothing specific to like, oh, this is the deck that won Worlds. Let's take a deep dive into it. It's mostly just what I'm playing, or maybe like a hack job version of the Emperor or whatever, or Usury or something. So, but then I think maybe about let's say 2 months ago, a good buddy, Steven, DM Armada, and Dylan, TCG Talk. If you don't follow them, why not? Go check them out. The three of us have kind of like pseudo started I wouldn't call it a podcast because it's more of a show, I guess. Like it's more of a FAB show, game show kind of a thing. It's called Give and Take. We do it over on Steven's channel. We moved it. It's now every other Friday because of my schedule. But yeah, so that's like a good time where we can consistently get together, chat about like the news and the what's nuts and what's happenings and things like that in the Flesh and Blood world. But I hope, and part of my job actually now is to do like live stream production. So I set up like all the video, audio, like I make sure everyone looks good. I make sure everyone sounds good. And so I think with that being under my belt for the last year, I didn't have any of that experience really. I feel like a lot more comfortable diving into that kind of stuff myself personally. So I kind of know the tools of the trade now, whereas before I was like, what does this do? What does that do? So hopefully now with that, my daughter getting a little bit older, time's getting a little bit more freed up, I can do a little bit more individual stuff and not just piggyback on Steven's success as a Flesh and Blood trader.
Hey, well, you add to Steven's success. How about that? You're not piggybacking. You're just piling on to it because
that's right.
You and Dylan are obviously great personalities, and how have you found it to like kind of be a part of that? Because Steven is arguably, and listen, folks, I don't know the numbers. But Steven's got to be one of the biggest Flesh and Blood creators that there is on YouTube. So, like, that is pretty cool to kind of just be a part of his channel. Obviously, he's a Salt of the Earth guy. He's been on the show a couple times. He's the best, right? So it's not like you're getting big timed or anything like that. But,
yeah, for sure.
How's it like working with Steven?
He's great, man. And so I think that whole relationship kind of kindled over just like geography. We just live in the same area, and I don't remember what it was, whether it be like an armory or like, hey, I saw he was selling something or trading something, and we found out we lived like 20 minutes away from each other. And that kind of led to more like, hey, do you have this card? I'm short this like passing mirage or something. Can you lend me one? I'm headed to the armory. Sure, swing by. I'll lend it to you or whatever. And so that kind of, like I said, kindled the friendship of, well, we don't have a lot of locals in the area where we live specifically. So, but just making videos with him, he's so like-minded. He just loves the game and he loves the community. And just like like-mindedness is the easiest word. And then Dylan, he moved from Virginia to the Dallas area. He lived over here for, I think, a year and a half, maybe 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so, yeah, we three all got together. We probably hung out in person maybe a total of like 12 hours in the 2 years that Dylan lived here. But it's just the knowledge, like, hey, he's down the street. Surely we got to be friends, right? Like, so, but yeah, so working together with them has just been a real treat. And so, yeah, I love those guys to death. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's awesome. And I'm always happy to, like just like a good show is like what I really like, right? This like, well, I try to bring that vibe to this podcast, like, make it something that people like look forward to. And, obviously you guys are doing that over there. Now, in terms of you as a person, I've always felt that you're one of the biggest advocates for Flesh and Blood out there, right? And, you're the biggest cheerleader, and I think that's great. We need the positivity. We always talk about, positivity brings everybody up, negativity brings everybody down. I want to know, like, I think personally, this might be the best spot the game's ever been in. And, I've said that a million times, but, that's maybe just the sign of a growing game. How do you feel about the state of the game currently?
Yeah. And, I mean, I guess to touch on the first point is like, yeah, I jumped on Twitter because I realized I never had a Twitter. I was always on Instagram. And I jumped on Twitter because that's where LSS was dropping all their news 2 years ago, I think, is when I first jumped on there. And so I just was like, I'm going to be a cheerleader for this on this platform because there wasn't a ton of it at the time. And so I definitely needed to toe the line of like, I didn't want to provide like toxic positivity. Like everything they do is awesome. I love everything about it. Like I definitely didn't want to be the teacher's pet of it. And from time to time, I have to humble myself and say certain things. Like the other day, literally last night, I said something maybe off color about Kano, and James White replied to me and was like, actually, Kano starts. I was like, oh God, I pissed him off. I was like, so there's like the once in a while I have to say some like weird spicy thing just to make sure the scales are balanced, and I'm not always like the good guy. But I forgot also the second half of what you were doing.
Oh, well, how do you feel about the state of the game?
Oh, the state of the game. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that old thing. So the state of the game as a whole, yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier, dude. Like the fact that if you love Bolton and you've loved Bolton for years and you can confidently take him to an armory or even pro tour like we saw and succeed, which was, at one point presumed to be this, like, if you showed up to a pro tour 2 years ago when he came out, people would be like, nah, are you sure about that? And now there's really like no hero that anyone's going to side eye. Like you could, like there was a lone, Vin set. It's like maybe not the most popular pick at Pro Tour, but no one's like, are you sure about that? Because everyone has a shot, and it just takes a specialist mentality and like just commitment to a hero. And I think that's what hopefully the game, and I think we've heard Brian Gottlieb say that, is like, that's kind of where they want the game to go. It doesn't need to be this like triangle of doom at the top of the meta saying, everyone get in line, you guys can have a turn when these three are gone. It definitely feels like everyone's got a shot. So I love that. And the longer they can extend that lifespan of this kind of healthy meta, I think the happier the players will be, especially as new players come in, they want to buy product based off of hero appeal and like, oh, I like that guy's backstory, or I like how, XYZ hero performs in the lore. Let me see what she does or he does. And it's like, come to find out, oh, I shouldn't really invest in that hero even though I really liked it. No, do it. Like there's no shame in doing it now. Every hero is viable right now. So hopefully that's the story moving forward. So
yeah, I gotta say I agree, and I feel like, the best way to look at it personally, I think, is you want the game to be exciting for new players. Like like it's a new game. People will get excited when they start like really getting it and whatnot. But like after the initial excitement dies down, what's next? And I've always felt like, well, the deck building is, something that is really exciting when you start to get it. And I felt like certainly in the earlier days of FAB, when we had just a smaller card pool, it was like, this is the deck, right? It's kind of laid out for you. You play it. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not. There's a couple different cards you can kind of mess around with in the sideboard slots or even in the main board to a certain extent. But this is what you see is what you get. Now, with the card pool growing every set, obviously that's how it works. It is getting to a point where you can build a pet deck, right? And bring it to Armory. Maybe not to the Pro Tour, but you can bring it to Armory, which is really, really sweet. So it's awesome to see that. And I think the general player base is more excited. Certainly there might be some frustrations from the more competitive players. Like, I don't know how to prepare for this giant tournament, that I'm investing a lot of time and money. I understand that, but also for the sake of the game, I think it's probably where it should land. Now, in terms of the card pool growing ever so swiftly, part the misfail. Obviously, we got a big reveal about that, and then we just saw the 3 new heroes. Oh, is it New, Enigma, and God, I'm already
and Zen.
Zen.
Yeah.
And they have some abilities that we don't really know how you do them yet because they have a different cost. It's a different resource symbol. They're saying, I think it's chi, but there's no sign of what that's going to mean. What do you think it is?
Gosh, man. And we have a group chat, myself, Steven, and Dylan, where we're all like, Dylan is like the biggest like tin hat, he's just like, no way, it's going to be this. And I don't know, man. So we've been bouncing ideas off each other. I like hope it isn't this thing, but also I kind of hope it is at the same time. But it seems like something this is totally out of left field, probably completely wrong, but it could be something that you bank and be something that could be like, I think I compared it to like for Zen, he's a ninja. And so think of an equipment that operates something like Mask of Momentum that says like, if this has hit, if you've attacked, or if your attacks have hit 3 times this on your turn, or this chain, you create 1 chi or something. And then, so it's like this thing that you just bank. And then obviously their hero ability says it costs 3 chi. Then you would say, okay, I'm going to cash in. So think like copper, silver, gold style, like banking. And then you can expend it at your will. But that in my mind would say, oh, I can prevent my opponent from creating chi. If chi is just this thing like, oh, you pitch and you make it, like that's going to be bad. Because their hero abilities right off the rip, without knowing any of the cards in the set, are pretty powerful. Like being able, Zen's hero ability is literally Katsu at instant speed. And Nu's hero ability without chi being spent is just insane. Like, oh, you block with the card, you block my stealth with a card, it gets banished. So, and then, oh, I can pay 3 chi and play your cards all of a sudden. So I'm hoping that chi is preventable in that regard, and saying like, oh, if this next attack hits, they're going to make a chi. And I know he's got 2 chi already. I can't afford for them to have this 3rd chi because they're going to cash in and do the thing. So I'm hoping that's what it is. I'm hoping it's not as simple as like, play the game, make chi. Simple as that, yeah.
Yeah. I think that would be tough. I mean, like, you'd really have to, like, I've seen people kind of say maybe it will be a specific kind of resource card that you pitch. And if they did do that, I think you'd have to make them just like almost like gems or crack baubles, right?
Right.
It's like, it's hard to give them more stuff to do. Like without it being overpowered, as you mentioned, the hero abilities are quite busted, all 3 of them in a way.
Yeah.
So I think probably, the first thing I thought of when I saw the hero abilities was like, okay, on hits, that makes sense. With, it makes a lot of sense, especially with ninja and assassin, and I guess in a way, illusionist. If you look at like the heralds go to soul or whatever,
right.
So
exactly.
It'll be really interesting. They make changes and they push boundaries every single time. I'm here for it. I love the art already. It looks very mystical. I don't know if like any of the heroes are gonna really speak to me. What about you?
Yeah. So when Yuzuri came, well, I guess backing up to like Arachne as an assassin class as a whole, I'm just like, dude, kind of gave me those viscera, kind of like, what's going on under the hood? Like, what are you doing? Like, who is this kind of darker, more adult themed hero? For that reason, I wasn't huge into like Tales of Aria because it was just so butterflies and pretty cotton candy. Not to say I don't have a soft side, but I like that kind of like edgier artwork stuff. So I'm down the rabbit hole, but Arachne and Yuzuri kind of spoke to me in that regard. Never pulled me into the point of like, oh, that's my main hero. Like everything else can push to the side. No longer want to touch anything else. I'm an assassin guy. But for that reason, I think New is going to speak to me in that same like, oh, it's assassin. I played a lot of assassin in the form of Arachne and Yuzuri. So I mean, if any three of them were to be like, hey, pick one, you're going to play it for a little bit, it'd be New. But nothing's going to pull me away from Viscerai at the moment. Yeah. I'm an old dog. You can't teach me new tricks. Yeah.
Well, they keep trying to teach.
They keep trying.
Something new.
Yeah.
And it's. I mean, hey, it's still cool. It's just not really coming together. But I will say.
Yeah.
At RTN, and this goes back to our point about how the meta feels like you can just bring whatever you want. I got worked by a Viscerai, which is a typically good matchup for Riptide.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I did not account for the math behind Arknight Shard. That's why I lost. And I was I was like, oh, they're playing Arknight Shard. That I should have at least assumed if this person was like, into Viscerai, Arknight Shard.
Yeah, you got it.
So that was my bad. But yeah, Chi's going to be interesting. But what else is pretty interesting is we just got like a pretty surprising ban. A ban suspended announcement.
Yeah.
Just came out like a day before we're recording this. 3 days before you're listening to this, hopefully. And the ban of Crown of Seeds and Berserk, which definitely took the world by storm here. Crown of Seeds makes sense, but as I tweeted, it got banned on its day off.
Yeah, dude, I love that.
It was kind of sitting there. Berserk was very surprising. Now, what's your take on these bans? Now, Brian had written an article. Brian Gottlieb had written an article, and I believe, and I'm sure we agree, that the reasoning was very sound, but that doesn't mean it makes it any easier for people who really love both of those cards. What are your ideas here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, for Crown of Seeds, it's like too little too late, but at the same time, their reasoning for it was, they felt because it's so in the past that they felt it was the right time to just say, oh, since no one's been thinking about this thing for a long time anyway, we're just going to go ahead and pull the Band-Aid off and relieve ourselves of any future like development hurdles that we have to jump through. Knowing that this incredibly, we all know, if you've been playing the game through the Tales of Aria meta, then Crown of Seeds was an issue. So notably, if they were to develop more Earth heroes in the future, they'd have to have this big looming like, but Crown of Seeds is here. So it makes sense that they do it while no one's really thinking about it. So that didn't hurt anyone. Plus, everything's legal in Living Legend. So, go ahead and do what you got to do with your Crown of Seeds. It's not completely irrelevant, but I know a lot of people aren't on the LL format train as of yet. But one day, hopefully there's some more premiere events that say, hey, yeah, Crown of Seeds is like still top dog and as far as legendaries go, just not in any future legal CC or Blitz decks. So I don't mind that. As far as Berserk, I don't know how to say Berserk. It's spelled the way that it doesn't sound. I love that card. I also know that it was kind of like a one-trick pony in the sense that like if you got your deck to do the thing, it was gonna go burr pretty hard. And I don't remember when it was. It was a live coverage event that someone pulled it off, and I maybe I'm blurring things, but they berserked, and it was like the most disgusting like 30 plus damage turn, which is not like too obscure when you think about other heroes that can do that. The Viscerai list that I play does upwards of 30 plus damage a turn sometimes. Kano does those things. We see KO do those things still today, stringing together massive 25 30 damage turns if they can draw properly. But I think that helped future-proof them for other brutes. And Dylan, again, we're in our group chat, so I'm going to bring up our conversation a few times in this show. But he was like, he was mentioning, he's like, it's so weird. And I was like, well, I feel like they're future-proofing the next brute, which they know they're planning 3-4 sets in advance. In my opinion, I think it's future-proofing the future Shadow Brute that they're going to inevitably have to do, because we've got, Rhinar, we've got KO. I think that they're going to want to level that playing field with a new Shadow Brute eventually, with like the return of the story of Monarch. That's got to come to a conclusion eventually. And I know that maybe, again, it's probably another card. They're like, well, not a bunch of eyes are on this. Let's go ahead and rip this Band-Aid off and, call it a done deal, and so we don't have to worry about this. What about Berserk in the future? So it makes sense to me.
Yeah, certainly, and I feel for the developers, right? You know, when they're testing these cards, and you're like, this is gonna be really cool. It makes a lot of sense flavor wise. And then they're like, oh, but Berserk's gonna make it so good that it's gonna be a problem. And you're just like, and the same with Crown of Seeds, right? I think that was like the whole point of Brian's article was like, this is tough for us because we're trying to make new stuff for you guys, and these are giving us roadblocks. And I've seen some people online. I understand. I understand that people are upset, and I empathize. Right. This is tough because it's a really cool card. It's a lot of fun to play. And I believe it was a top 4 at Philly Battle Hardened. I think maybe that's when you saw it on coverage.
Yeah. Okay, that's when it was. Yeah.
I think a
Because it was recently.
Deck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really sweet, right? And there's so much potential with the card already with KO. Like you can kind of just go crazy with it. But you know, it's tough because people are saying maybe why not just wait till right before? And I understand that argument, but also why let it marinate, I guess, when you plan on doing it anyway, right? Like rip off the Band-Aid now, right? And then and people are going to forget about it when the actual real band would have come, right? Like that would be a little bit more fresh and buds for people. You know, I'm self-promoting my own podcast that people are listening to. I'm a marketing genius, but
Dude's a wizard.
But you know, I think that it's kind of interesting that they did it. I like when they take proactive steps.
Definitely.
And it's not like we saw. Was it Dustblade get banned right before the set came out? And people were opening like cold foils in the set, and that was like a future proofing thing that they did too late. I think they don't want to do that again. But
exactly,
really interesting. Now, Parker, I want to do the fresh phase, but I want to do heavy hitters edition. How much heavy hitters did you get to play? I'm sure you tested a lot online, and you know obviously there's no Viscerai in heavy hitters. But, you know, there's a lot of cool heroes as well.
Yeah. I played quite a bit. I played KO specifically, just like through testing and on Talishar. KO was kind of my hero of choice. I played a lot of Reinar in the early days of just learning the game. At the time, you know, Arcane Rising, WTR were the 2 sets that were basically available. I don't think Monarch hadn't come out yet, so. You know, I went for more of the ghoulish, you know, dark side of things. I was like, who's that big monster guy? I want to play him. So KO gravitate, and I think that's going to be the future. I mean, even Levi. So anytime like a new assassin comes out, I'm going to gravitate. Anytime a new brute comes out, I'm going to gravitate. So KO naturally spoke to me. I played a lot of him, and immediately, like I took straight to Twitter after my first like 4 games. It was just like 4-0 tear. I was like, dude, this hero's busted. Like at no point did I feel like, oh, I might lose this. Like, no, I was like, oh, this game is this like turn 2. Like by the time I've got an agility and 2 mites, like GG's, bro. And I was like, maybe it's just because people aren't used to this hero and they don't know what it does yet. And then sure enough, like a week went by, still on a tear. Another week went by, still ripping. I was like, dude, this hero is destructive, dude. They should not have made this hero. So yeah, I played a lot of that, but I did attend one Heavy Hitters pre-release in which I piloted Kasai, so I was kind of hoping to play KO just because that's who I had been testing with. But Kasai is insanely fun in limited. But I think as a lot of people have discovered, if they participated in any draft or sealed events with heavy hitters, Kasai is kind of like the deck to beat in the pod. So that's like the extent of it. I shortly went back to Viscerai. After a little bit of that, I was like, yeah, that's cool, but he's not purple, so I'm done.
That's true. Not purple. I even wore a purple hoodie today just for you.
Dude, I wore my Viscerai shirt.
Hell yeah. For the YouTube watchers, folks, check out the YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. So it's safe to say that your favorite hero out of heavy hitters was KO.
Definitely. Yeah, still love him. Yeah, I think he's fantastic.
This a flavor win, really powerful, totally understandable. What is your favorite weapon from the set?
Oh, honestly, probably Miller's Grindstone, which is not my cup of tea usually. I don't really love Guardian. I guess if I were to pick between the two Guardians, I do really enjoy me some Betsy. Um, like out of all the pre-constructed decks that they sell, the little, the ones you can go pick out for like $10 or $12, I love the Betsy deck. I play those with my two 9-year-old boys all the time. And so, yeah, I love that deck, and I love to put in a little Miller's Grindstone. It's just one of those things that's just like, late game, if you want to block, that's fine. Give me your cards. But if not, I'm going to take your cards from your deck. And I think that design in Guardian opens up that, which I hate it because I don't really like Guardians that much, but it opens up that like late game, the clock is ticking. And so, you sit down from a hero or a Guardian that flips a Miller's Grindstone, and it gives you that like that sense of urgency, like, oh, we've got to do this quick. And I love that presents that emotion or invokes that like feeling in you. So I think as far as like what it draws out of me, I think it'd be Miller's Grindstone.
Yeah, you got to respect it, right? Like, you sit across from me, you're like, well, if you're on a certain kind of deck, well, my deck's not going to have higher attack than most of these
Exactly.
cards in my opponent's deck. I have to respect this stupid, hammer. But that's a great answer.
Yeah.
What's your favorite equipment?
Probably flat trackers.
Ooh.
Those things, I missed them. I didn't get them in my Heavy Hitters pre-release. But yeah, those feet are hard to pass up when you're sitting in a limited situation, or just like drafting or sealed. Man, those will get you going. I think like if I was to say majestic equipment, the the Luminaris, I guess. Which stinks because I also don't enjoy that hero. But
I have to keep rereading that stupid new Numinaris, because the third edition.
Yeah. You look at that Prism, and she's got 2 specialization heroes, or when she LLs, she's taking both with her, and that's when you know it's a problem.
Yeah,
just kidding. No other hero has 2 other weapons that LLs with them. So
hopefully she's gonna take some time. Well, I mean, actually, I don't. Actually, you know what? Get out of here, Prism. You know?
Yeah, fast track it.
And what's your favorite, like, run of the mill card? Your cards you throw in your deck, non-attack actions, attack actions, blocks, items.
I love Wage Gold.
It's
just a solid 3 for 7 that just again, and I mean, it's got that universal keyword on it, which is really cool. I hope we see more of that. Also, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could play it in Viscera and make a Rune Chan off of it if you wanted to. If you play like a Mob Skies into Wage Gold or something, you could probably pull something funny off there. But yeah, I think that's just a really fun card, both again in limited and CC, just deck building wise.
Yeah, it's a pretty versatile popper, and the fact that it works with like class specific pumps and stuff like that is really cool. Like even Blood Rush Bellow. Wish it worked. I wish it was an arrow too. So like
right. It's universal, but not like
not like that.
Yeah.
But but those are all some good picks there. I love the flat trackers. It kind of like really shows that, hey, this game is about thinking 2 turns ahead, right?
Yep. Exactly.
Just make this thing and save it for later, or hopefully use it later, and hopefully you don't get punished for it. Which sometimes that is what happens in high variance sets like Heavy Hitters, which it was. Now,
exactly.
Speaking of high variance and awesome segues, Pro Tour Los Angeles was this past weekend, and holy smokes, Parker, this event, first of all, was so much fun to watch, right?
Yeah.
We had one of the most interesting set of games, I think, that we watched on stream, especially in CC, over the weekend. And it was just so cool to see. We saw a nice variety of decks. We saw like crazy stuff, like a big comeback from Akatsu early on the first day. And then we saw the whole top 8, which we can talk about. But what were your takes on the coverage over the weekend?
Oh man. Well,
as far as like the personalities in the booth specifically, I mean, LSS has just gotten so lucky with having people that are dedicated to the game and, well, I guess it's like a multifold, dedicated to the game, really well spoken, has the time to invest in working those kinds of events and can just like intelligently play by play keep these games that sometimes can go like pretty gruelingly long or kind of play patterns are pretty telegraphed. They can turn them into like this circus event where it's just like, gosh. So Sam O'Byrne is what a guy, dude. Like I actually hadn't personally met him until I think last week or the week before, when he was on our episode of Give and Take, and God, he's such a cool dude. And we've got, of course, Brian. I love that they include Brian there. He's got that like inside baseball knowledge that he can't say too much, but he can say a little bit more than other people can. So it's like it's just enough of like towing the line. And I think Uber, Mitch, Leslie, oh gosh, dude, like what a I hope that they pay him so much money to give him a retainer to never talk about another game ever again. Like, please let him be exclusive to Flesh and Blood, because that dude, I've known him to be part of the community, but of course he's in like esports and things like that. He does a lot of esports casting, but for him to be able to just like kind of, in my opinion, come back into the Flesh and Blood community like he never missed a beat. Dude, he's a legend. So provided such great coverage. And so, and then of course, like the hero spread it made it so enjoyable. It wasn't what we were used to in the past. It wasn't Chain Prism, Oldham. It was the unexpected underdogs that we got to see the entire weekend. And so, I think that joy was like reverberated through the casters as well. Like even they were like, "What? This is crazy!" So it just translated so well.
It was pretty incredible, and obviously, Pankaj, Sam, Brian, Mitch, they all did such an amazing job. We could talk about Sam O'Byrne forever, but Pankaj, I could listen to Pankaj forever, and Brian, obviously, he's the GOAT. Let's call it what it is. And Mitch, my God, I mean, I don't watch a lot of esports, but the fact that I was like, he seemed like he just gets it, and he also seems like he really loves the game, which is like really super important, probably really super important to LSS too, because they I don't think they'd just bring on a name to bring on a name at this point in the game, right? So it was really impressive, and just like looking at the hero spread was really interesting, because I'm not trying to scroll to it, but we saw a lot of obviously a lot of KO. KO was the most represented hero, I believe.
I think so.
Yeah. It was the most represented hero, followed by Dromai, and then KO, Dromai, Victor, Kasai. Oh, that's the calling. Sorry, folks. I'm not gonna edit it out.
I'm also you're getting it. This is what you get. I'm also like looking at the same time because I also don't know. But I also didn't mean to leave out Pankaj, because he's an absolute legend. I love him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to be his friend so bad. Like I just want to hang out with him.
Well, you could be his bud actually, because we're on Fresh and Buds. But KO was the most represented hero, followed by Dromai, then Dorinthia. And Dorinthia and Victor were basically right there. And I think that's kind of what we expected, right? But then you kind of look down the list and you start to see a lot of Azalea, a lot of Dash, a lot of Katsu, a lot of Leviah, Kano, Kasai, Bravo, Prism, Reinar, and Bolton. Those are all the heroes that were represented in double digits at the Pro Tour. And then, we see some Viscerize. What? And even a couple of Arachnes, Azuris, a single Teklavas, and a single Vincent. So like this was like there was no clear choice as to what the best deck was. Maybe there was. KO obviously seems like it was the best.
Probably,
deck. Yeah. But that being said, it was impressive to see such a wide spread there. Now, what happened in the end was, I'm gonna mispronounce his name, even though I heard it said a million times.
Yeah,
Arthur.
Well, because Sam can't. Sam's the only one that can say it because he's like knows French fluently. But,
yeah. Arthur.
He's like Sam
Trehet. Well, first of all, Arthur from France, exceptional play throughout the whole weekend. Every time
Dude.
he was on stream, it was like the most nerves of steel play I've ever seen. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
not ever, but like I'm being hyperbolic today because we're right off the heels. You know, it was incredible to watch, but
Yeah.
just seeing Arthur play throughout the weekend was like inspiring. Almost made me want to play Dromai, but I don't want to play Dromai because Dromai is going to be
Almost
gone soon because Arthur won and put Dromai within 4 points of Living Legend. We'll talk about it in a second. But also to watch Max climb on Hatches Dorinthia, as well as Josh Lau on Hatches Dorinthia throughout the whole tournament was really, 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 really cool to see. Now, what were your thoughts on the gameplay? You know, we mentioned the commentators and the hero spread, but the gameplay was exceptional.
Yeah, dude. I feel like, and I mean, I guess going into a big level event like this, people are always dropping like, you know, who do you got? Like, who do you think is going to take it? And people are always saying like the Pablo Pintors, the you know, and they're fantastic players, the Tarek Patels, the Yuki Lee Benders. But what we saw in this like top 8 was just like the new school of high level competitive players. Only one United States representative in the form of Josh Lau, which was fantastic, but showing that the rest of the world came to play the game. Like they traveled here, they're not going home empty-handed. And so to see some names, and not to discredit some of them that have been doing fantastic in their home countries, but here in America, I mean, we like really emphasize like some of the names I just mentioned there that like do really well, that bring the trophies back home. You know, people like Max over there in Germany. Like I know he's like a, you know, they're gonna put his face on the flag probably when he gets back because he's, you know, he's gonna become a household name in the Flesh and Blood TCG if he wasn't already. But yeah, so it's just the games were so tight. I think more than just like the heroes being played by specialist pilots. So you just had this like they had energy left in their brains to play the mental game too, because they knew their heroes so through and through. They weren't playing, oh, I got to learn this KO deck really fast because that's the deck to play. You knew that the people that came to play Kano and Dorinthia and Dromai, they knew that deck in and out, played in their sleep. They've been playing it for years. So they had the time to say, you know what, I'm also going to play the Nerves of Steel mental game as well. And you could see it like in their eyes. There would be a few times where, you know, someone would look down at their cards and the other dude's just staring them down and they're just like, dude, oh my God. Yeah, right. Yeah, just like, dude, this is insane. So, I mean, very rarely did I ever see anyone like flush with like, oh, I don't know what to do. I mean, people were like very calmly thinking through their plays, put something down, think about it, and be like, maybe not this time. And like almost every single time, someone would make a play and be like, nah, maybe not. It paid off in their favor. So you saw people trust their gut and be like, no, just play the deck that you know. You can see them talking to themselves, like just do the thing that you know to do. And like, sure enough, the next turn, good thing you tucked that sink in there because here comes that dominate. Like, good thing you didn't pitch that because you needed it for this turn. Like, gosh, the plays are so tight, dude.
It was incredible to see, and yeah, you put it perfectly there. And people were just playing to their outs, and I think like especially in that last game against Max versus Arthur, right? That this is going to be a game that people talk about, right? Arguably is maybe the best game we've seen on a stream. Like maybe just because of, you know, the implications of what it was. It was for the Pro Tour, but also kind of like two decks that maybe like I don't think Dorinthia is like close to favored, but it was super close. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of like mind gamey kind of play to your outs, play to not lose, play to win kind of things going on where like you saw people in chat and people online going like, well, why would they do that? Well, we have perfect information, folks. We saw what was in their hands. We saw what they were trying to do. And and in reality, they don't know what's going on over there. Arthur had to play to a point where I have to draw that sigil, which he did off the with the sink, which was insane. But also on top of that, if Max had drawn into the swing or second into the swing, Was
in the swing.
in the swing?
In the swing. Yeah.
If he had
Zero
drawn
cost,
it in the
yeah.
swing off of the Glint the Quicksilver on that
Yeah.
turn, that would have been game. So like,
Yep.
there's all these different things, and Arthur had to play it in a way because, well, he's playing against Dorinthia. He doesn't know what these reactions are going to be, right? Like, you can count their graveyard or whatever, but there's still a lot of possibilities in the deck.
Yeah.
So like, it was
Definitely.
really interesting to see. And you also made a great point about like, only one U.S. representative, and then every other player in the top 8 was from a different country. That was so cool to see, right? Just like a global game. I think it was three continents also. Yeah. South America,
Okay.
North America, and Europe all represented.
Yep.
Sorry, Asia and Australia and that region, but it seems like we only had so much room in the top 8. But if we expanded
only
it to
8
the
of
top
them.
6, if we expanded to the top 16, it looks a lot better. But it was really cool, and Max is certainly a great player. And I mean, everybody in the top 8, obviously great players. They made the top 8 of Pro Tour. That's the whole thing here. But like, it was cool to see Daniel Correas, from the Sunflower Samurais up there.
Yep.
And Peter Ward and Joel Repta. These are all names we've seen around. Josh Lau getting his flowers as a warrior player. It's really so cool. And
no kidding.
It felt like things really lined up. And
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, we saw like a lot of cool stuff. Was there anything else that stood out to you?
I mean, throughout literally, I mean, I'd say I watched 90% of the entire weekend. There's a few times where you run some errands, you eat, and things like that. But for sure, I watched 100% of the top 8, and I loved that they had every game on coverage. I know in the past there were some times where they could only feature one match, just maybe due to time or things like that. But to have every game like stacked, where one will complete, the next will complete, and so on and so forth. So I think that was huge for viewership. I think, everything Mansant and his team are doing to provide just like killer viewing experience to make us feel so included is just like a good omen going forward, knowing that like, hey, if you can't make it, you're not the only thing you're missing out on is like the camaraderie in the flesh. Otherwise, like experience wise, you probably got the best seat in the house. Like, you're not missing much by just sitting at home and watching this game play out. But then also it made me realize I'm a horrible player, and I make knee-jerk reactions and plays that these folks in the top 8, like watching Arthur literally go from like 40 to 19 on like one turn, just be like, all right, whatever.
You're just like, that's over.
I'll just take my life, whatever, because I'm gonna win anyway. Like, oh yeah, I'll let you think you're gonna beat me. And then I got some sigils in there. I got some arcane damage in there. I'll bring you down. So to see people like use their, things that most people would say, I can't lose. I'll block here. I'm going to block here. Like, dude, I don't know. I think it makes you open your eyes a little bit to saying that maybe there are like 4 different ways to play this game. And it's not just block, defend, or attack, defend, attack, defend. Maybe there are some like really big brain plays that need to happen. And again, it just opened my eyes to be like, wow, I am like a one-dimensional player. Maybe I need to start taking some damage and like getting a little greedy sometimes.
Life can be your best resource, but it can also it's risky, right? Like right.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
What it is. I mean, something that stood out to me personally was you mentioned the camaraderie, but I think we got to witness a lot of it. Like, I think that seeing, especially in the top 8, just the good sportsmanship or gamesmanship or whatever you want to call it, among these players was so refreshing, right? I used to watch a lot of other TCG kind of like high level stuff, and not to say that it doesn't exist there, but there would be just kind of like a real just like, no, I'm here to win. I'm just in the competitive mindset. I'm not gonna be cool, like right. Which this is, I mean, something I love about Flesh and Blood. Something I love about Flesh and Blood is Man, I'm just gonna talk about my own podcast. Actually, you know what?
Something I love about Fresh Buds is
Screw this game. Let's just. This is a podcast about my podcast. No.
welcome.
Welcome. I'll be spinning a top later to make sure I'm within the right dream.
Yeah. No kidding.
But no, something I love about FAB is that like you get this kind of camaraderie because you know a lot of the plays are like low variance. I've talked about on the show a lot that you know because there aren't so many salty moments that you kind of get to see like you know just people being people, and I think that's why Flesh and Blood is so cool, and to see it especially like on screen is really neat as well. Now the elephant in the room though is that Dromai is now 4 points away from LLing. That would have been one ProQuest win coming up, but now I think it's 2 ProQuest wins because they shifted ProQuest back down to 3 points. So Dromai needs to win 2. We'll likely do it in the first week.
Definitely.
So
yeah.
I think we can reasonably expect a majority of the ProQuest season and beyond to be Dromai-less until there's a new Dromai. What do you think that means for the meta?
I mean, I think I say everyone, most people will be excited. And I think like Dromai and Fire are two of the last heroes in FAB 1.0. And so I think that even like anything Dynasty Plus is 2.0. And that's where you start to see that like powering down shift start to happen. Like think Arachne kind of set the tone of like, oh, this is where we're going. We're kind of slowing down. We're playing our cards. We're not playing, you know, just like power, go, like Dromai and Fi tend to do. So I think that the world that LSS is creating in the game is going to balance out. Right now, there's just so much dichotomy in being like, oh, I want to play like Teklovasin. Okay, like how are you going to beat Dromai? Like how would you ever, like, I mean, not to say you can't, anything's possible, but that like, how are you going to do this is now you don't have to answer that question with Dromai Gun. I played her a crazy amount when she first came out. And so like it kind of stinks to see her leave, but at the same time it is one of those like welcome departures. Like your time has come as long, and it's not going to be one of those things that like Briar lived on 998 for like forever and we just couldn't see her out the door. So it's kind of nice and refreshing to be like, we can without a doubt like expect her to be gone, you know, very, very quickly. And then that opens the door. I'm a little worried about what that does for the Guardians in the world, because I think that Guardian becomes like the next big kind of bully of the meta. Not to say that they weren't before, but they don't have to worry about, which, you know, is a pretty tough matchup, which I guess on the surface doesn't sound like it, but we've all come to find out that poppers aren't the only thing you need against Dromai. You know, there's actual tactic into that match. So now that Guardians don't really have to worry about that side of the gameplay, they can start, you know, doing a lot more, you know, debauchery to the rest of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I think we'll see like probably a lot of Bravos and Victors right out the gate and stuff like that. But they still have to deal with the Brutes. Like the Brutes are still really good.
Totally.
And then these grindy Hatchet and Decimator Axe warriors in like all flavors at this point is something to like really be concerned about. I guess I think you can grind out any of the Guardians with any of those warrior decks easily.
Yeah.
You know, but that being said, Victor and Bravo are still doing insane busted things. It'll be interesting to see if Ninja obviously saw a little bit of a flare up with like, you know, Katsu and stuff like that. If I could, you know, maybe take another front seat and also be Living Legend, we will see.
Which would be great.
I personally, as a Riptide player, like to see Dromai gone.
Yeah.
It's just like one bad matchup I don't have to think about, right? You know, we still have some bad matchups. It's like, it's whatever. But we're also going to see a huge flare up in Prism, right? I imagine a lot of these Dromai players are going to say, well, I really like Illusionist. I like making allies. I want to attack with a Herald now. So there's a lot that can go on. ProQuest season will be interesting. I will lose my mind though, Parker, if Dromai does not
Oh,
get the
gosh.
win somehow in ProQuest season. It pulls the Briar, as you mentioned, because
I hope. Yeah.
well, it would need 2 wins. So like, gosh, I mean, that would be insane, right? That would be crazy.
Surely there's 2 people that are like, no, I'm just gonna win, and because we saw that with Prism, like Prism or OG, where
Mm-hmm.
people like, I don't know if it was just like funny business and people just pretending, but it seemed like they were actively like not playing her to keep her around, like at certain, like, oh, don't play her for RTN because she'll LL. We want to play her for the Pro Tour or whatever. Like, it's like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, like I'm assuming that 2 people out there are gonna win with Dromai and be like, oh, I didn't get the memo. We weren't supposed to play her. Oops, my bad.
Well, you know what? I think that we're gonna get a new illusionist. I think these people are gonna be excited to play whatever that is, and
Yeah, we're not out of the woods yet with Dromite. With one door closing, another illusionist comes out of the other end. So
yeah. And I mean, do you think that there's any heroes like specifically that we should see kind of rise up that we kind of didn't really see prior to Dromai getting LL, assuming that she does again before Part the Mistveil shakes things up again?
yeah, I mean, dude, you mentioned it. I think Riptide is crazy. Riptide is crazy, dude. I don't know. I think I've lost more to Riptide than I've ever beat one, because the people who, again, the specialists that know what they're doing, I'll be sitting there thinking for like a minute or two, and it'll be Riptide's turn, and they'll play like, I know what I'm doing. Boop, 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 done. And like, dude, let me think for a second. Like, do you have the react? Do you have something that's gonna, like, detriment my turn? Like, so I think Riptide, again, with one of his worst matchups in Dromai leaving the format, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that become a problem for me and a blessing for you.
Yeah,
but also,
yeah.
I would say also Viscerai too. I'll pat myself on the back a little bit, because that is arguably one of his worst matchups. So Illusionists, notably, if you're playing the aggro version of him, you're probably able to bring more 6s and Runic Reclamation. With it being a 7, you can pop some of those other pesky heroes. But with Dromai gone, those 2 heroes seemed like, oh, we can get back into playing fun flavor instead of just like, I want to win. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was like, it turned out for Viscerai that the free on hits on the dragons wasn't enough. Like that.
Exactly.
And things like Tome really kind of pushed things over the edge. And
yep.
I would actually, I'm going to say it, I would not be totally surprised to see Arachne and Azuri really make a big push in this ProQuest season, because we saw some success over the past 2 weeks with both those heroes. I mean, some of the Arachnes made day 2 at the calling, including Taylor Morrow of the Attack Action Podcast. Shout out Taylor.
Yeah. Dude, heck yeah.
But Arachne is scary. I've seen Arachne with like the new toys, and I'm like, okay, this is a deck now. I'm a little bit terrified now.
Yeah, coercive tendency is horrible.
It's pretty
horrible.
Wild. That card is
crazy.
Actually like super good. Like the power level on that card is insane. Obviously, the rest of the deck is like whatever, but that card, spooky.
Yeah.
but finally, before we get to a couple of listener questions, and then we say our goodbyes, do you have any wild Part the Mistveil predictions?
Well, before we saw the heroes, I was really hoping for a new Runeblade, just because
it's been a minute.
that's what I do. Yeah. And then also at the same time, they did say it's all talented, and I was like, okay, never mind. I don't want a Runeblade. I want a talentless Runeblade. So don't give me one. So I'm actually pleased that that's just that. Wild takes. I don't know. I feel like the chi thing is like too much of a question mark for me to be like, oh, this is what's gonna happen. I think that the standout hero, the breakout hero, is going to be Zen, though, because the Kitty Katsu builds and the things that Ira can do with that, like in Blitz when she was around, the things that she could do with Crouching Tigers and stuff, like if that is his whole gimmick, is to mess around with Crouching Tigers and all the like 50 card long combat chains, I think he's going to be a problem. And it's going to be crouching for 1, crouching for 3, crouching for 1, crouching for 2, and it's just going to be like, dude, there's not enough cards in my hand or equipment to block here. Like, you're going to hit me. And So it's gonna be very, very, very interesting. Without Ice, without Dromai, we got a new ninja coming out, and it's gonna be kind of terrifying.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's probably a fair assessment because the groundwork's been laid for the Crouching Tigers. Now we're gonna get new Crouching Tiger stuff as well. I have to imagine. So
Yeah, and it's in a set with an assassin and an illusionist. So this ninja has to be up to that par.
mhm.
And the fact again that he can basically just be Katsu at instant speed and go searching in his deck for cards with combo and just do insane things.
Wild.
Doesn't have to
wild
hit.
stuff.
Yeah, it's just insane.
Yeah, yeah. Well, pack your what's that card from Everfest? The blue. Your opponent's
this
tax.
round's on.
Yeah,
This round's on me.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Pack
dude, that
your-
card's gonna be like a skyrocket. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that should be the next card I spec on. I just bought, folks. I bought a lot of Hack to Realities. I'm feeling pretty crazy over here. I
love that
scared.
card.
Yeah, it's very good. I'm just very scared of illusionists, like
Yeah.
traditional illusionists, like whatever dragons,
yeah.
whatever. I'll just race them, but
Yeah.
Now we do have some questions. First, coming
nice.
from Capola. How you doing, Capola?
Love them.
Were you surprised to see Viserai at the PT? Do you think it was there only for the good matchup versus Dromai, which we said that probably isn't that great, or do you think there's more to it right now?
So I've been spending more time than I used to in the Purple Discord's Viserai sub channel or whatever it is. And I feel like just being in there for long enough, I've gotten a little bit of hope. And so I guess I wasn't too surprised to see some diehard fans. Again, we've mentioned that this is just a specialist meta. And even hearing like Zach Bunn, an amazing player, fantastic content creator as well for over there at Team Covenant. And so he was just like, dude, I'm locking it in. I think he shared a screenshot of him locking in Viserai in December. He's like, I'm locking Viserai in for PT 2024. And it was like December 3rd or something of last year. And so it's one of those things where like, oh, like people are just committed to this hero. So it wasn't too shocking. And I knew that if you were going to bring that hero, you kind of had to know what you were doing with it. Now, if we saw like 40 Viserais, I'd be like, what do they know that I don't know? But to see what 6 of them is like, okay, that sounds about right. There's always a little splotch of purple in the big tournaments and that don't usually make it that far. Now to see that some of them, John Ho was one of them, and there was another person, I can't remember the last name, but it was Jordan. Both of them placed pretty high up going into day 2. So that was surprising. I was like, okay, what do we got going on? Come to find out they're both on like Nebula Blade hybrid kind of style builds, which is super far left of my radar. Myself, I've been on like a rune stacking defensive plan, and a buddy of mine over at Chance and Daggers, I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry. But Chance and Daggers, he's made a really cool Viserai list that I think a few other people were playing that utilizes like Arcanite Ascendancy and Slogism to do like real big, I think it's the Turtle Burst is what he's called it. And so to see that deck along with some Nebula Blade was really, really cool to see. But yeah, notably, I don't think that the matchup into Dromai is super easy, as we saw on one of the feature matches. John Ho, who's like arguably one of the best Viserai players in the world, just couldn't pull through and win that Dromai match. It's just tough.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and it's kind of interesting because it can do two things. It can be the aggro. It can also do the, all right, we'll sit back. We're gonna make a lot of rune chants. We're gonna block, yada, and then explode. So I expect Viserai to be in a decent spot going forward. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Now, Gary, aka Mr. Viz, speaking of Viserai, asked, your wife does excellent cosplay. She does.
Oh.
What's it like helping out? If you do it all, of course. She might be doing it all.
Oh, dude, yeah. Well, she's taken a small hiatus. I'm sure that Part the Misfail will spark a new, sense of encouragement with some of the artwork and art style. I think that's kind of what she leans more towards. Helping her has been great. I think playing Flesh and Blood for me. I mean, I'm a FAB dad, so we've got kids. We've got full-time jobs. We've got tons of responsibilities. As I mentioned earlier, we bought a house, so it's just like my outlet at the end of the day is to play Flesh and Blood and talk to people like yourself. And so I've got like this small group of this like niche corner of the world with the people that I share interests with. Whereas my wife, prior to like Flesh and Blood, didn't really like have her thing. And so for her to see like her adopt a little bit of my thing and make it her thing, I never even considered cosplay. And so she's never done it before. So for her to like adopt that as one of her things was really, really cool. So I try to help as much as possible, whether that be like, I never constructed anything. I've only ever like helped say, oh yeah, maybe do this, or maybe just given some input or whatever. And every now and then, I've taken some pictures of her because it's hard to take a decent picture of yourself when you're in full cosplay. But I'd love to see her like cosplay at an event or something. That'd be pretty cool. But she's been doing like a lot of like other like she's been doing like some polymer clay stuff. I think she's just really reaching into like her creative side, and that I think cosplaying unlocked for her. So hope to see more from her.
Well, that's what we love to hear. Just kind of attacking the game from all angles, right? There's so much about this game that is being explored and can still be explored, which is the best thing about it. So thank you for the questions, folks. You can submit those on the Buds Discord. Please check it out. It's in the link tree below. Parker, Breezy. It turns out it is being easy, being breezy, I guess. I obviously
never thought
love
about
that,
it.
so maybe it's not easy being me. But please plug everything that you need to plug, and thank you, my friend.
Yeah, well, dude, thank you again. It's always a pleasure to be here. Love seeing you again. I guess, if you want to keep up with the things that I've been doing, you can find me over on Twitter. X, I guess, if you want to call it X. I actually don't even know it couldn't just be Breezy. I think Chris Brown stole my official Breezy. I think there's an X in there somewhere.
It's _Br33zy.
Yeah, see, I had to go creative. There you go. 3 threes. You can find me over there. Being generally positive, sharing my thoughts, occasionally pissing James White off with hot takes about Kano. And then also you can find me on YouTube, occasionally posting videos there. Same name here, Breezy. I think it's 3. I think it's 3 threes there as well. I think I couldn't solidify my thing there. If you type in FAB and then type my name out in the search bar, you'll be able to find me. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And it's 2 3. I think if you search 2 3s, it's still going to show up.
Look at me. I'm a marketing wizard too.
Wow.
Look at me market myself. I don't know how do you find me? I don't know.
They call it SEO or something like that?
Yeah,
Who knows?
SEO.
Yeah, you're
Who
killing
knows,
it.
dude? If you find it, just say what's up. But then also over on DM Armada's channel, we do every other Friday, we do the give and take. That's a live show. So if you ever feeling frisky and want to come watch us beat each other up over hot takes on Friday nights, you can check out Steven's channel. We'll be over there.
Awesome. Please check all of that out, folks. You can continue to find me on Twitter at freshbudspod. Check out the Buds Discord, YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. A lot of people have been popping into the Discord, popping onto the YouTube comments. If you listen on Spotify, give us a rating or whatever. And check out Fresh Juice, which is the indie game podcast that I do with my cousin Maddie. And we just went to PAX East in Boston over the weekend, and we played a lot of cool indie games. Would love for you guys to check that out. And finally, my friend, I always like to talk about food at the end of every show. Hit me with some food you want the buds to know about.
Dude, I think most people know about this, but if you don't, you need to. Poutine. Get you some poutine. Get you some late night poutine. Heck, I don't care. Have it in the morning. I don't care. Gets French fries doused in gravy with a bunch of melted cheese. Just get a fork and sit on the couch with your fat pants on and just turn on like a cooking competition show. You're in for a good night. Eat you some poutine tonight.
Oh, I love poutine. It is the best.
So good.
For my job, I'm at a lot of bars, and a lot of bars serve poutine, and a lot of times I'm eating it because guess what? It's hard to say no to it. So thank you, my friend. Really appreciate it. We don't have time for Charmer, of course, but maybe next week. Who knows? You're all the best. Have a great weekend, and stay fresh.